So, my name is Dan, and I am a decades, nearly half-century long Rosicrucian, and I'm by no means an expert in all the mystic information, but I am an initiate in the Rosicrucian Society, in the Order of the Rosy Cross, and so alternate realities has always been something that I've really been into. Recently, I've gotten very much into ET contact, and so I've tuned my awareness into being open to contact, and not so much searching for it, but to actually make myself open and aware of the activities that are going on around us every day. And so in that process, and I've been sharing this a lot with Tim lately, in that process my awareness is growing and my openness is expanding. And I'm certainly open to further contact with other dimensional beings, as well as beings and visitors from other areas. And so I came here today to share that experience and to see if anybody else has had any sort of profound or even remarkable experiences. And I think the last thing I'll say is the other day I was meditating, and I became aware of my surroundings in a way that allowed me to sense things, colors, feelings, sounds, entities that I felt as though we were interacting on a level that was, for me, it was profound. And I hope that others are having these same sorts of experiences. And certainly I want to encourage folks that are open to having these sorts of experiences to explore them and share them, because I think that we don't share it enough. I think the things that we do, and I was talking to a young guy here earlier who came in from, I believe, Wisconsin, and he was sharing his experiences and visions. And Area 101 has always been a place that has resulted in profound experiences for me. Not just what we're doing today, but it was also the doorway that I found cannabis and the movement and the people that have become some of the most striking, certainly impactful people in my life. And I just love coming here. It's sort of like Mecca for me. And so thank you for welcoming me back to Mecca, and I hope that my experiences are going to be enjoyed by everybody else.
Okay, I've been dealing with ETs through many lifetimes, but since I was a child, I probably had 20 or 30 experiences with people, multiple ships, very direct. I've done a lot of hypnotherapy with many therapists. I've done a lot of work with psychics. I've done a lot of work myself. I've been meditating for 50 years. I'm very much devoted to my ET family. Started researching in the 1970s with Billy Meyer's book, that was the first one, and Zecharia Sitchin with the 12th Planet and Anunnaki. I've been doing a lot of podcasts lately, and I do about an hour and a half presentation on this, but I'm going to try to do it in less than 5 minutes. So basically, it's real simple. Zecharia Sitchin discovered in the 70s that there were the Sumerians who were talking about the Anunnaki, and they're a race of beings that basically were here before us. And he was really poking in the dark because he didn't know that much. He was a Jewish master who was studying Sumerian technology, but nobody knew that much. Since then, about dozens of Sumerian linguists and stuff have gone back and deciphered something very clearly. For 250,000 years on this planet, there were Anunnaki living here. There were 12 kings and queens that ruled this earth, and basically were living on all in Antarctica, on the warm spots of the country in America. there's a theory called the Younger Hydrous Impact Theory. It's now a fact. It's America Before was written by Graham Hancock. It's a new book that he came out with, and it's very, very clearly it's a fact that 12,800, I think 65 years ago, a comet hit Michigan, and it also hit Greenland and a couple other places, and it exploded. And that's why all the little ponds all over the East Coast, because you have skyscraper-sized icicles that were hitting there. And the Clovis people, who they've only found a couple of skeletons, pre-American Native Americans, they found out why, because about a 500,000-foot wave washed over America and wiped them all out, took them out. And so the Anunnaki at that point got permission to breed and create us because they needed workers for their gold, their fields and whatnot. If you go back and you look at Sumerian text, you're going to see all the art. You're going to see the giant beings next to the smaller beings holding lions and stuff. It's all depicted art. It's all natural. And so, and Lil and Enki were the two scientists. And Lil was the military guy. Enki was the chief scientist. And he basically took a rib and used our DNA and worked for 1,300 years to perfect us. And in that time, you also had all kinds of half man, half beast, all the mythology you see throughout time. That was also done too, because they were doing all kinds of experiments. And they finally got us down, but then they had all this other stuff going on, and they decided to let us kind of become a mute experiment because they didn't really want us to evolve. That was Noah's Ark. Enki told Noah, who was his half-son, a lot of the indigenous people too, and 1,300 years later, they're now proving was Noah's Ark. And that's what came in. They were going to get rid of us, but they saw that we survived, and they embedded themselves into all the indigenous people. And that's why you look at the Mayans, the Incas, the Peruvians, all the Polynesians, the Sumerians, the Egyptians. Those were all Anunnaki. If you go back and look at art with Akhenaten and Nefertiti, they always cover their heads because they're elongated skulls. But if you look at Akhenaten and Nefertiti, there's a couple pieces of art in there that have their kids on their laps, and they have the elongated skulls. Very, very, one of the few places they've ever allowed themselves to be filmed or basically depicted. And so those are who the people that created us that we were rolling along. In the Bible and stuff, that's not a God for an eye, tooth for tooth. That's not God. That was the Anunnaki. That was Enlil, battling and stuff. So fast forward, they've been doing this thing on our planet for all this time. And then we get to Roswell coming in with World War II, with the Germans coming in and them getting spacecraft. And then you got Roswell coming in and us realizing what was going on. And you basically had very quickly a situation where the Germans backed up to Antarctica. There's famous pictures of them going to the White House with UFO ships. Those weren't UFOs, those were Germans. Admiral Byrd went down to largest military operation ever after World War II, went down to Antarctica, tried to blow them up. He got wiped out. They flew over, checkmated Ike Eisenhower, and basically said, we've got the technology, we need the manufacturing prowess by you. So Ike made a deal with him, but within 2 years he was cut out. MJ-12 was formed, they cut Ike out. He couldn't even get in there. That's why he wrote that famous speech before he left about be aware of the military-industrial complex, because he was warning us already that the military-industrial complex had taken over, and he wasn't even allowed into Area 51. He told John F. Kennedy, they killed Kennedy when he tried to stop it. That was the end of the free presidents. We haven't had a free country since they killed Kennedy. That was it. We've been basically under a phony two-party slave system ever since then. And so there's a man named William Tompkins. I'll go so quick. William Tompkins was the head of the spy program for World War II. He was also part of NASA for 50 years. He wrote a book with Michael Salla before he passed away in 2016, documenting all this, because he came back and was telling our people that the Germans were building spacecraft. Anyway, he followed this for 45 years, and he basically said that the German military-industrial complex side launched in the 60s with multiple ships. They've been trading with up to 700 races around this galaxy ever since then. We launched, and say the good side of the military, Navy and Army, launched in 1986 with 8 mile-and-a-half-long spacecrafts, and there's been Star Wars in space combating that ever since. This is William Tompkins, one of the most respected people in the world, who was allowed to say this in 2016 with Michael Salla. So that's basically what we've got going on here. We have this war in space. We're basically in the Third World War right now. Supposedly that's all been done and it's all been cleaned up in space. But what we have now is the elite of the world who worked under all those dark ETs or whatever. We're all trying to figure out who's going to take control of this planet, and that's what we're in the middle of. But there's a lot of stuff going on. Michael Salla, Lena Denon, Benjamin Fulford, and so many people are talking about this. Benjamin Fulford, who was a straight journalist, Forbes magazine. When 9/11 came in, the Asian mobs came and told him it was all fake. That's when he changed his life and became Benjamin Fulford. Now, a lot of people have stuff about Benjamin Fulford because he goes, gets a little far out and this and that. But he doesn't like talking about ETs. He doesn't like talking about real satanic stuff or pedophilia. And in the last 2 years, he's just had to bring it out, because when you peel the onion back, this is about a satanic pedophilia network of the world's elite working with dark force ETs that have controlled this planet since the Anunnaki created us. And we've been under a spell with them through the media, through everything ever since then, which is all cracking right now. And within the next year and a half, we're going to see Enki, our creator, land here, because they lived for 30,000 years. He's going to land here, and he's going to introduce himself because we're about to take back our world very quickly.
How do you follow that up? But the one thing that's crazy is that I was going to share a UFO story, but I want to make a quick comment about kind of what you were sharing about observing things and observing things in yourself and starting to pay attention. The more you pay attention, the more you learn. But I'm glad you said what you said, Tim, because I think I saw that war going on. So at the time I didn't know it, but since I've been thinking about it ever since, one of the things is that I personally, everyone else can believe what they want, but I personally don't believe that we made it to the moon. So if we didn't make it through the moon with 7 of the most crazy radioactive belts imaginable, with this tiny little spacecraft with a small amount of fuel and a computer that had the technology of 1/100th of a cell phone now, if they did make it there, let's just say that they did make it there, why was there kind of like a ghost time in space development between then and the launch of the space station? And all there was is a slow development of a couple of satellites and a slow development of the space shuttle. And so if you look at the space shuttle, really it's not much different other than a white paint job than what they had in the early 60s. So, and yet we're learning that every single year computers double their processing power and technology speeds up twice every single year. So then you'd have to think, like Tim was saying, that we have a secret military or secret space program where they have tons of space. There's like, remember right before 9/11, the day before that, Donald Rumsfeld said there's $2.3 trillion missing from the Pentagon and we have no idea where it went. Yeah, well, maybe some of that went towards the secret military, right? So anything's possible. So anyways, in Willits, 9 years ago, I was with a friend of mine, we're playing drums out at 11 o'clock at night. And this is what I think happened. Is at the first night, at around 11 o'clock at night, we started seeing all kinds of alien spacecraft. Just tons. And doing stuff that's way different than what other people have described to me, way different than what I've seen before. Like, for example, you'd be looking at the blackness of space, and then you just see something slowly appear into your views. And then it's there. It's not moving. It looks like a star that just went. And then it goes. And another one shows up, shoots down to it, disappears, shows up again somewhere else. They can disappear at will, reappear at will. They can move insane against any law of physics you can imagine speeds. They can do crazy maneuvers that wouldn't be able to happen in our atmosphere. So I know that I'm looking at UFOs. I've seen other things that are questionable before. But this night was where both of us, and there's where I'm going to be a man and admit in front of public, we grabbed each other and we're quaking in fear. And we're hugging each other. We thought we were about to be abducted. We knew, like the first time in our life we'd see things, that this is the real deal. And we're making contact with them, and we're playing drums, and we're in the middle of nowhere in the forest. They're gonna freaking come abduct us. So we're like, dude, got each other's back. Get ready, they're coming for us. So that didn't happen. We weren't abducted. Then there wasn't, after about 12:30, we couldn't really see it anymore. I had to go out at 11 o'clock at night again. So we're out there about 10:30. We're playing drums. Nothing happens. Around 11 o'clock at night, sure enough, crazy, every kind of amazing, insane UFO thing you could ever imagine is driving in the skies. By about 12:30, it's done. The next night, it comes over again. We go out at 11 o'clock at night. See the same thing. This night we see insane stuff. We see a freaking space war, Tim. We see crafts chasing each other and shooting blue tinted and green tinted lasers at each other and exploding in big white lights. It was a freaking space war. We saw a space war above our heads. By 12:30, it's gone. So has anybody figured out what's going on? I figured it out. Because as the rotation of the Earth happens, they're only in one spot of space in relationship to us. So you're only able to visibly see them, especially behind my trees, for like an hour and a half. So I couldn't figure out, I was like, why are they always partying? Why are they always battling? Why are they always doing whatever they're doing at between 11 and 12:30? But that was it. So anyways, I have tons of UFO stories, but that was my main one that I want to share, because I went on for 14 nights in a row. Wow. There's no like, maybe this was a UFO. 14 nights, so it must have been a 2-week long war or battle. And it's probably going on 24 hours a day. I could just see it for an hour and a half. That's what I'm thinking. So, anyways, that was nowhere. In the past, I'm like, that could be a weather balloon, that could be a satellite, that could be a this, that. One time my friends and I said, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing ever. And then the next day, there's a whole thing on the front page saying it was a missile test, right? So it could be a missile test, could be this. But these were 14 nights in a row, hundreds of UFOs. It's just like, no way, this is the real deal.
What was that?
What? What we were seeing?
Yeah.
Oh, it was never explained anywhere. And every night before bed, I look out there and I've never seen it once. My friend who came and saw it, he lives in Willits as well. And he looks for pretty much every night since. We've never seen it once. So that was just a special 2 weeks. But anyhow, I'm going to pass the mic on in a second here. But the last thing I wanted to say is that I'm a permaculture designer. I have been for 25 years. And what permaculture taught me is that observe before you do anything. And the more you observe, the better you can make decisions that are in harmony with the needs of nature and the needs of humans. But you need to observe first. That's why when I traveled teaching permaculture in other countries, I would observe the local farmers, I would observe the local foresters, I would observe the animals, I would observe the plants. So through observation, I've become a better and better listener to myself and a better identifier of patterns in the world. And the basic pattern that I want everybody to understand is that there is, as Tim described, there is a control structure whether you believe it or not. You still get controlled by whether you say, oh, that's conspiracy theory. Still in it, my friend. There is a very established control structure. And how do you know when you're hearing it? Well, generally, when when the government and the media and the celebrities say to do one thing, generally you probably should do the other. That is been going on for a very long time. And I don't have time to get into how it all started, but it's pretty easy with a thing called corporate, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. When two corporations merge, you know what I'm saying? Consolidation, there we go, corporate consolidation. So anyways, the power structure's been there. But what I'm encouraging you all to do, you don't have to know every single thing. You don't need to know all the demons in the Democrats and all the demons in the Republicans. They're both horrible. You don't need to know all the horrible corporations that are doing this and that to people in the environment. All you need to do is identify the patterns. If you see the patterns in the landscape, you know what you can kind of know where to look for what I consider to be the actual truth. You know, so, for example, one thing you can see, you can look at as one example of many, is the idea that they're pushing, and this comes from somebody, by the way, who has his degree and did his senior thesis on hydrogen and renewable technology, so I know a little about what I'm talking about. What they propose to us is that we should all have electric cars, and that we're doing zero pollution, and we're doing a great thing for the environment. What it really is something that my professor at an amazing college I went to is called peak oil. There's less and less oil available. It's going to get more and more expensive to produce it. So they need to think of a new power source that they can control. So they do this incredibly harmful mining for battery materials. They enslave countries like they've done in the Congo for years. For these precious metals, they destroy the environment, the groundwater, the resources, the soil. They make the people work for pennies on the dollar, dump all the poison in their backyards. And that all goes into your Tesla and your electric car, right? And think about this, people. We all want to be healthy. You're sitting in an EMF tomb. A tomb of EMF radiation, thousands of fold higher than your body has ever been exposed to before. So they make money off of cancer, and they make money off of treatments in hospitals. It's easy work for companies. Whereas we could all, me as a backyard mechanic, convert your cars to burn hydrogen. And then instead of being a zero effect to the environment, you'd be purifying the air and balancing the environment as you drove. Sucking in dirty air, spitting out pure water and oxygen. So anyways, I'm going to wrap it up by saying, look at the truth in the patterns in nature and in the patterns in our society, and it'll all reveal itself to you. All right, well, I'm glad we had this time. Phoebe and I talked about it. I said, there's no one to share this interesting stuff with, and I know there's people who are into UFOs, I know there's people who are into truth research. Can we have a circle? And she's like, yeah, other people would totally be into it. So I appreciate everyone listening. I'm down for the whole night to talk about this kind of stuff. All right.
Wow, that was a lot to digest. I don't think I've seen anything. I don't think, I see stars. But, and I've been trying to levitate for 62 years while meditating, and that hasn't happened. But I still am a believer. I believe in everything. Like, beam me up, I guess. I'm filling my karma bank so that you want to take me. And wow, that's all I have to say.
Hello everybody. Just happy to be here. What's your name? My name is Chief. Everybody, and just happy to be here, hanging out.
My name is Tommy, and I remember the magic every time I'm leaving town. And last night I got really lucky to have my car break down in front of this place. And I've been here before, and Tim happens to be my friend on Facebook. I'm so happy to be here right now because my friends and I, my dear friend Tony, which I'm going to share this live stream with him later, like what both of you are talking about with I was hearing that history has been rewritten, and there's like castles and buildings that were here a long time ago, and so there's a lot coming out, and I love watching everything. I watch flat earth stuff, I watch it all, and definitely because I substitute teach, and with the moon landing, like who knows what they can do with technology they're not showing us, but whatever they're showing us on that night.
Realize I'd be up here sitting with a microphone at some point. Hey, this is freaking awesome just to be around all these great people, hear some great stories, and I'm just here to sponge it up and trades and talk some canvas with people. So on that note, I'm gonna pass the mic.
Yeah, I would like to add an interesting piece to all of the ruminations that we've kind of touched on thus far. I found this book called UFO Highway by Sanchez. He interviewed this guy who was a psychologist for secret base, basically. That's where he ended up. The secret base after a firefight between us and some grays that were in the ground there, right? So he gets this packet of information about the whole thing, and he ends up being able to keep it the whole time. So he studies the whole thing for his entire career, which is all spent in this place called S4. This place was found while in the early 1940s while they were looking for places to blast off nuclear bombs. They found this cave full of dead aliens and Native Americans, all perfectly preserved. Right? Then they knew exactly when this occurred because the Native Americans had brand new Winchesters. So this was like when the Winchesters first made their way into the great wilderness of the United States, and they got in the hands of these natives who were just they knew where these people were, and they were gonna go try and take them out. So there's a firefight in there. That area was abandoned, but what they found in the 1940s was telephones, iPads, screens that you could write on that were clear. You just wrote on it with a electric pen, and you couldn't see it. Everything that kind of like spooked up out of nowhere during that time, including transistors right from the start, were all like built upon this miniaturization greatness, and like they're part of like their like Anunnaki existence that was like here to die in a hole in the middle of the United States, what now is the United States. So anyway, I just wanted to add that into the complexity and the interesting pieces that come together from different angles, because I read all the Sitchin stuff, and then when I read this whole thing, they had this, the alien creatures printed their entire history on these metal plates, but it was all Sumerian text. So they're able to like decipher it, and so that's the short end of it. There's a bunch more that we could talk about, but I don't want to we could most likely just go around a couple different times. I would like to talk about my early experiences with missing time and things of that nature, that I had no idea that it was a thing. It wasn't until I'd seen communion that I realized that there was such a thing as missing time experiences or whatever, And right after that, I ran into the Barney and Betty Hill story, where the case of missing time, it was like, oh yeah, this is a phenomenon. This is something that like people recognize, you could recognize as a pattern, And so more and more of these stories come out where people are missing time, right? And then you find out, or you look, easily enough into the past, and you see what, fairy abductions, you go into this place with these little people and drink one of their fluids, and then you come back 10 years later, in case you're missing time. So there's a lot of overlap between the fairyland and the interactions that we can have with what are termed alien beings, but according to them, they've been here longer than us, so that's an interesting bypass, but they say that they're from the Anunnaki people, who mostly left because they're all getting, everybody that was staying here that has lived forever, for ages, started to look older than their parents who were still on Nibiru. So they were like, oh man, because it's like we're just closer to the stars, so it's limited. So anyway, we'll go back into more of it later, but
and we accompanied ourselves to each other. So that was me introducing myself.
Cool.
Hi everybody, I'm Bevels, and I thank everyone who has helped me in innumerable ways over the course of the last few months as my illness was deteriorating and I couldn't live where I had lived. The conditions got too harsh, and this community came through for me like I never would have imagined. If I'd been asked beforehand, I would have said, no, I don't think so. I don't think the support will it be anything to write home about. Everyone has their immediate problems and struggles, but I feel I was wrong. I feel differently now. I feel this community has a much greater capacity to come forth on our own behalf as who we are than ever before. And yesterday was it yesterday already? I guess, yeah. Saturday in Willits at the county museum opening, there were 67 people from the public and 13 additional from staff. So 80 people came to that opening, and the museum people really kind of love us. I mean, it's been pretty much hostility from the county and the city and many small businesses. We have not had a lot of love lately when they shove us into the regulatory stage. It's not legalization, it's regulation. So, but all of this is a thing of the past, and I feel like we should go forward with an emphasis on culture, community culture, and I'd like to suggest, I want to take a little extra time to present this idea of innovations. The Roots Elders Council, which I'm a part of, is
good news. So to take it a little farther from what I was talking about being open for contact and about to conceptualize places, other dimensional beings, folks that, or entities, whatever you want to call them, that we don't quite understand. Like I've always had this fear of insects my whole life, and now I've moved to Mendocino, and I'm kind of getting okay with other types of, you know, I'm a city boy, I'm from Oakland, so, you know, we don't have a lot of other animals there. So anyway, in getting familiar with, or being open to getting familiar with other folks, because I haven't had the kind of experience where you've seen, you know, crafts and battles, and although I have seen you know, my wife and I recently have, you know, it's almost kind of like because we've been open to contact, that we're seeing some, you know, activity in the sky, especially when we stop and think about it and think about who's operating these crafts. And I would love to have that, but, you know, I think right now I have to step into that sort of mentality, sort of maybe in meditation and in a protected space where my aura's, you know, covering me. But one thing I really want to take off on what Tim was talking about is this cabal, this slavery that we've been living under, and these structures that have been, you know, I was a union guy forever. I worked in politics most of my life. You know, I don't consider myself naive, and you know, coming against the system, having a vision one day of a legalized cannabis and hemp industry, creating jobs, normalcy, stuff around it like that, I ended up taking on the cabal. You know, I hit them head on. And I brought in, you know, I drugged the labor movement into the process, and I built coalitions of groups of people that would never exist before. In other words, I took this cabal head on, and it ended up being the battle of my life. It ended up being a thing where, you know, you see, believe it, and always have. And the point where I ended up going to prison, being called every kind of scoundrel. Decided to stand up for this community and had my family destroyed, had everything taken from us, including, you know, my reputation that I'd spent my life on. So when you get to understand this cabal for what it is, and then you break it down into the entities that Tim has just so eloquently spelled out, and I've been kind of looking at this stuff too and understanding Enki and Enlil and Anunnaki, and you know, some of the other races, I guess you would call them, and then realizing why we don't have to be afraid of it today. And then as a Rosicrucian, somebody who adores my learning, my understanding, from the gifts from the mystic schools and from folks that go back to these origins and the Sumerians and these stories. And then I start to think about not just, like, it doesn't have to be proven to me anymore, the process. Now I think I'm finding my place in what this process is of contact and enlightenment is what we're going to do as a humanity, as a race, as we move forward. Like, you know, I used to wonder, okay, are there ETs? Is there other life? Now I'm not wondering. Now I'm wondering what our place is going to be in it. Now I'm looking forward to the healings that are going to come about it. Psychic healings, spiritual healings, physical healings. You know, I've heard that maybe we'll stop aging. I've heard that maybe there is energetic medicine that will rejuvenate our bodies, rejuvenate our cells and our, you know, physically as well as spiritually. And maybe we can hang out here and spend some time. I actually kind of like the place now that I'm older and I've had my fight with the cabal, and, you know, I'm out of prison and back home, and I don't have to be a rotten guy anymore, and I get to contribute to my community again, and I get to adore my kids. Maybe I'll get to see my kids information and I can understand it, right? Because before it was like, wow, you know, that's pretty good stuff. Now it's like, I understand where he's going with it, and the Khazarians, and the whole, you know, that whole bit of, you know, there's stuff going on in, you know, politics. You get to understand when you've seen your story on TV news enough times to know why it's there, because you put it there, because you created the story, you put out the press release, you set the narrative, and you watch it. So I get to have this little gift of being able to see that stuff, see through it when it's on TV. And we see this stuff happening in Ukraine. And God bless the Ukraine people, the victims of what's going on between these, you know, cabals, these evil forces that really ran this planet for a long time. And like Tim said, now they're fleeing. You know, now they're trying to grip. If we get together as humanity and we have a plan to move forward and what our place is going to be in that, man, I mean, the potentials are just, you know, this is the special time. It's what the cabal people call the end of time. You know, the religions and the, you know, the corporations and all that stuff. I think about your statement about corporate, what was the term? Consolidation. So now we can consolidate, right? Now we can, you know, build our own holding companies, build our own corporations, things that do things meaningful. When I set out to help legalize cannabis, I did it not just to create jobs, but also, you know, hemp and the healing that goes along with hemp and the things we can do with that, the unlimited possibilities of where things can go. So I think that's enough for me. And I just really want to thank Tim for putting this forum together and for having us. It's so healing to be able to talk about this stuff openly, because we don't get to do this everywhere. You know, like if I went to work and I talked like this, and I work with some pretty progressive people, right? But, thanks for, it's a wonderful tin hat. I love it, it fits well. And thanks for the fur lining in it, Tim, because you're the one that puts the fur in the tin hat.
And my anxiety is really, really bad, and to share this, I'm glad that I can. But I was 6 years old. I've had experiences. And even last night, it seems like any time I actually look up at the sky, I will see something. My daughter and I, just last night, had an experience that was incredible. And I'm glad I could share that with her. It was amazing. But yeah, I just wanted to share that they are out there. Thank you. How y'all doing? My name's Mama Kay, Kelleen Peters. I grew up in Ohio. I started interacting with UFOs when I was about 10 years old. We had a military base in our backyard, and I stopped sleeping at 10 years old and started seeing things shapeshift and change. And I too have never talked about this in public, so it's kind of emotional. Yeah, they're out there, they're with us, they're in people, they're shape-shifting in front of us all the time. If you get to experiment with psychedelics, you can look into that veil a lot more clearly. I'm a big fan of Dr. Greer. He's having gatherings and recording beings showing up at the gatherings. That's just incredible. I'm in love with his research right now. Thank you for putting this together. We've never formally met. I'm Kelleen. Nice to meet you, Tim. This is really exciting. One thing I do want to share in respect to the Rosicrucian, I have friends that are involved as well. A lot of respect for what that stands for. I personally am a Universalist. I practice Kelleen. I take little parts of every religion that I like and I practice them the way I want to. And I don't let anyone judge me on that. So that's my religious stance. One thing I do know
is that if you see an orb, I had a friend talking about an orb that appeared in front of them the other day, and she said, you know what, Mama Kay, I got so brave and I telepathically communicated that I was welcoming them, and as soon as it came to me, I freaked out. She's like, I started screaming, I completely freaked out, and I'm like, okay, well, you're halfway there. So I haven't had scary experiences with you. I've only had healing, beautiful, magical, amazing. Like, I believe tuning into that. It's work. I'm gonna go alien. No. Carrying yourself into a level of existence and a plane of meditation that hopefully you can keep with you all the time, you know. But there are some deep levels of meditation that I can go into. I practiced Melchizedek method many years ago, and went ahead and traveled all the way up into the spiritual sky, sat down at a board meeting with insect tribes. I mean, the amount of different deity that were in this meeting were incredible. They were all speaking different languages. They were all speaking different languages. They were all aliens, like, literally. And they were all trying to fix what was going on. They were all aliens, like, literally. And they were all trying to fix what was going on down here. They were all trying to send messages down and get more people interested in what they were doing. So for me, I don't talk about my experiences publicly because I have been 5150 for communicating with aliens, and it sucks. And I have to turn things off in my head and say, okay, we're not going to do that because I don't want to end up in a straitjacket. So thank you for providing this space. This is incredible. I love that people are together. Some of you look like you didn't know this was an alien meeting, but that's cool too. I love this, and I'm really happy to be here and start on this conversation. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you for sharing. Actually, Phoebe put this together, and she thought it'd be great because Max was talking about it. And so Phoebe gets the credit for that. She does most of this. I just follow her. That's one of the things that we've been demonized all this time to speak out about it. Whether it's psychedelics or aliens or anything alternative, it becomes you're a conspiracy freak, you're crazy, you're this. They're so good at it. I won't spend a lot of time on it, but Annie Jacobson she's a Pulitzer Prize winner author. She wrote a book called Phenomena, and she wrote a book about how the CIA and all of them knew before we ever got to Mexico all about psychedelics. They were down there in the 30s. That's how they got random remote viewing. That's how they got acid. That's how they did all this stuff. They demonized us, called us witches or warlocks or evil or this, while they were doing it all. And that book, Phenomena, when you read it, you realize, oh my God! But there are people that are nailing all of them, and we're going to just take it. And we're going to take it to them. I've had a lot of ET experiences. The first one I ever had was I woke up on the beach. I was 2 blocks from the ocean. My dad had about 8 deadbolts on the locks, and I woke up in my underwear. I've never slept a lot in my life. On the beach on a Saturday night, and I was about 8, 9 years old, and I was terrorized. All I wanted to do was get home. 20, 30 acre farm, and we were standing out there. My guy Chris goes, look, that's ET. It's one of your ET friends. And we looked up, and sure enough, it was turning on, turning off, moving. It was like, wow. So all of a sudden, one by one, everybody's watching this, and all of a sudden, about 20 of us watching this, and this redneck guy, Davey, who's one of my partners, he's like, Tim, that's really great, but if we don't get these craps in, they're going to be in the morning. We're going to jail. ET's not going to save us, man. We got to go back to work. So I apologize. I'm sorry. We have to leave now. And so we worked. It got done about 4:30 in the morning, and then we were going to leave the fields and stuff. And looked up, and there was that ship again. We were all standing there, and it came down out of the sky and came down right on that horseshoe behind a giant tree, a couple trees behind it, and just hovered this giant ship light right behind us. And I'm walking right towards it. I'm like, I'm going. No worries, I'm going. They're all backing up. I'm going. And as I got closer and closer, that thing just ran along the shore, just ran like this, just glided and turned from 0 to light speed, just disappeared from all of us. Every one of us watched that thing. About 23 people watched that experience, and that was a really good one. But the thing the point that's inspirational to me is that there are some people like Michael Salla, who was there with Stephen Greer when he did the press conference back then in 2001, I believe. He's a PhD, changed his life. And there's Elena Danaan, who's an archaeologist, who's a druid, who's changed her life. And she's written the Cedars book, and she's written a lot of other books. And I was thinking that they were getting out there with some of this stuff with NK and all the stuff they were talking about and everything. But I went to a conference at the Eclipse in 2016 and listened to all these people, Michael Salla, Lauren Eisenhower, Corey Good, all of them, David Wilcock. And they were saying things back then that I was so far out, it was hard to believe. Pedophilia, I never understood pedophilia. I know priests and molested kids, but pedophilia, like satanic pedophilia, all the elite. I don't know the whole thing about Russia stopping that war that happened, which they did. 6 weeks later, they got the Mediterranean to stop that war. But they predicted all kinds of stuff that came true, and it's all happened. And now they're predicting stuff that's so amazing that I was like, okay, could this even be possible? And it's amazing because John Peterson from the Arlington Institute, a Navy think tank, and Greg Braden, who's got about 1 million followers, he's an environmental scientist, he came out last week and they were saying that everything that Elena and Michael are saying is true. And this is from the military think tanks. They're saying, we follow her ourselves. Now, she's talking about, they had a trial where they captured Enlil and his son Marduk, who was in the Bible and all that, and they actually had a trial with them, and the Sircons and the reptilians and the Greys, and they basically, the Galactic Councils came down, and it's a fact. You can go on YouTube and look at this little tiny house. He sell it for his $20 million homes, because he knows where he's going, and it's not here. And then they told him to bring free speech back and by Twitter, and that's what he did. But the ET people were saying, why do they let this guy in his Illuminati? Because he's not good. And they said they had no choice because they his manufacturing prowess to make the spaceships and the med beds. They'd taken over the dark side of the moon that was controlled by the military-industrial complex and the Nazis and whatnot, and they're now making mass manufacturing med beds. Like you see in Star Trek 6 years ago, Emery Smith, who's the third generation military guy, they would tell us that he came out because what he was watching with the med beds and the stem cells was so unbelievable that he was watching amputated arms being regrown and damaged brains be brought back, and people being like brought back from 70 to 50. Right before his very, he's like, we all deserve that. And I watched him that 6 years ago. He said, you watch just what happens with stem cells. Well, back then, they had to take it from your bone marrow, very invasive surgery. Now they can get it from your fat cells. You can go to Tijuana and for $25,000, you can have a complete stem cell replacement. That would have been almost unheard of 5 years ago. A couple years ago, it would have been $500,000. Now it's 25 grand. And every person on this planet is going to be given that. They demonized it under religious purposes. That's because they didn't want us to be healthy or thriving. So we're all going to get those in conjunction with those meds, and we're all going to be healed back to our optimum health. And those Anunnaki lived for 20 or 30,000 years. There's no reason for us not to live that long, healthy lives ourselves. So we're going to get that. They're also going to get free energy, which is coming out very quickly. You see all the hydrogen you see being talked about now. They've had that for the last 50 years, ever since Tesla. We're going to be given free energy. They're going to give us all the med beds. They're going to take at least 900 trillion from the elite of the world, and they're going to take 300 trillion and retire all the debt of the world. The complete debt of the world is $300 trillion. They're going to retire every debt of the world overnight. There'll be a jubilee. They're saying now they're going to say that that's going to happen by the end of summer. And they're going to take, they're saying, but you know what? The interesting thing is that I was thinking Elaine and them were a little bit way too optimistic, but these people from the Arlington Institute are saying this is all coming in. So it's really amazing what you're saying. It maybe, like you said, it might be an extra 6 months for that they're saying, but they're going to do this. We don't know who we are. We're one of the very few planets of beings that weren't raised with like, okay, there's friends in that star and that star's on weekends and we're all together and this is where God. We're like a faith-based planet that don't even know who we are. We're living on an Old Testament, on a Bible that, yeah, and they are ETs, Christ, Buddha. They brought them all down to kind of get rid of the Enlil tooth for a tooth thing. But we don't know who we are, so they're so fascinated by who we are because we have to live on this faith. And so really they say one of the most special, magical beings throughout this whole galaxy and universe. And that's why they're from all over the universe watching this right now. And afterwards I'll show you the pictures and you can see these beings and where they're at.
Does anyone else have anything else to share? We could semi wrap it up at this point.
He wants to.
Bring it on.
I just think if there's anybody around this area, we should really meditate on where we are right now. We're at the bottom of Spy Rock. And we're not far from another ridge top called Pumpkin, also known as the Ridge of Lights. Right. So if you have any doubts, load up. We can go right now. and see plenty. And that time frame thing you were talking about earlier tripped me out because I was working up on Poomkini a few years ago with my friend, and wow, we did like enough harvest in the night. And maybe you were there, Rio. You might have been there too, but like there was times 10, 15 man crew, we're cutting, and we would go silent. You see that? I seen that. I actually feel it.
Yeah, I feel it.
And that same shit you're talking about, like, I ain't the one to turn this way when I see that. We running into the bush, like, we seen it. We see you, we're here. We're like, we want to talk. And more over the times we said like, oh, did you see that? That was cool, actually. Let's go look again. The more and more we went, the more and more we got. And the more and more we said openly, like, yeah, we ain't really scared. We ain't out to hurt you. We ain't out to tell on you. We kind of want to know what you want because we probably have it. I think it's really like the same thing we as mankind want. Minerals, fuels, all these other things. Like, they just want to build. So when you sit on top of a mountain that's full of iron, you're gonna see them. When you sit on Poomkini's full of methane. That's gas. They want that gas to run their ships. That's why they're there. So the obvious is the obvious, like really opening your eyes. I think there's plenty to see. Like, you don't even have to move from this place. This is a rich place to like communicate. For real.
Absolutely, that's amazing.
That's why it's Area 101, right?
Well, no, if you've been here for the time memorial, there's a vortex between those Great and all the other people in here. It's really powerful energy. It's really great about that. I just happen to get lucky.
But the time frame thing you talked about kind of coming to my mind a lot right now too, because it was always that same on Poomkini. It's like 10 till maybe 1 in the morning, all the time, a lot of action, and then nothing.
Maybe it's the way the sun reflects off the lens of the atmosphere so we can see better at that time, you know what I mean? Magic.
Well, you know, one of the things that they've all been saying, that everybody should try to get as pure as they can with their food, their water, what they do, like a stress, praying, in whatever form you pray, meditation, because they're coming at us so heavy right now, and they want to interact with us. And so if you do that, some good psychedelics and go out at night, they're ready to come in.
That what you said, so I won't name no names, but an elder I know from Kovalo will talk about being abducted a handful of times on the 162 in their vehicle, and brought back to their home to be observed, and what they were told is that they were not healthy enough to be abducted. So once you become your prime self, that's when you become an interest for them to actually reason.
Yeah, I want to say when I was practicing Melchizedek method, I was also a purist. No caffeine, no nicotine, raw vegan diet. What Tim's saying about being your healthiest self, that's really a big deal. The projection I had when I went up into that meeting, I was actually a purist at the time. So there was no caffeine, no nicotine, raw food. Yeah, I mean, I was floating around. It was and it's also very hard to maintain that. I have 6 children, and at the time I had 11 children living in my house, hence the name Mama K, because I took in a lot of strays over the years out in Redwood Valley. But when I got into that meditation and I got up there and I was in that essence, you want to stay there. You want to stay there, and it's very hard to do and interact with other people unless you're on the same frequency. So when are we going to have a gathering and invite our friends in to show themselves to us?
Well, you were talking about Stephen Greer. He does CD5s, where you consciously come together and you spend the night out. Now, he doesn't do it with any psychedelics or even cannabis. He's very pure. He thinks you get together and you... I like to do custom CD5s. I think the psychedelics and cannabis are pretty good. They really help. But everybody's got their own thing. But we did one of those up on Bell Springs and had some amazing experiences. And Phoebe's wanted to do those. And we really should, because we've got the community here. It's really time to do that. And, when you feel the love in the ships, if you've ever felt when you really see a ship and connect with it, where they're connected to you, the love is so overpowering, you just want to go there. I mean, I've told Phoebe, she's like, would you leave your family? I said, I'd leave in a second because that's my family. And I mean, I have kids, grandkids, and everything else, but they're so full of love. The good, benevolent ETs are so loving and so full of love and that's what we're going to come down here. The meek are going to inherit the earth. We're going to have what all religions have talked about for time immemorial. This isn't the end. This is the beginning of a new way of life. The new earth is coming in, and the people that are the good people of this earth are going to be here to take it over and steward it. There's enough. They found one asteroid that there's enough minerals to last this world for 100 years. We don't even need to be mining on this planet. Those people, the industrial military complex that took off into space, they wanted to get rid of us. They were going to keep that for themselves. Well, we're going to get rid of them, turn this into a park, and then we're going to mine those asteroids like they were, and we're going to have everything we ever needed with hydrogen fuels, and we're going to live really beautiful. That stuff that you're talking about, Dan, we're going to live something that's like so, it's beyond my thought, because I'm a enslaved, programmed, PTSD little rat that's been chased like an outlaw for 50 years. I'm still twitching. And so it's like what we're going to see in the next few years is going to be so remarkable. When I heard from the Arlington Institute that they were backing up Alana Denon and what they're saying, it was like, oh my God, even the big boy Navy people are saying it. So get ready, that's where we're going, and we just got to prepare and get as pure as you can and just connect with them because they're there.
So I think we should design like some type of a group where we're all doing the same thing for like 2 weeks to prepare for it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if we all can get, meditation is putting a web up. If we can connect that web, I'm just suggesting that we really consciously create a program to do this. Because if we can get a committed group of people and we all follow the same diet, the same little meditation program or whatever for a couple of weeks, if we can really tune that frequency in where we're united on the same frequency, whatever the group chooses that to be, but holding that meditation is like the internet, the meditation goes up like a web over all of us and the energy's there and we're holding it. So if we design something that's like that's Stephen Greer's calling code. I have the same app. Yeah. So if you put that to a walkie-talkie, the old walkie-talkies had the frequency in the walkie-talkies actually transmitted this better, but they took those old radios down because the radio waves were so powerful for transmitting. But I feel like if we all get together as a group and we're on the same little sphere of energy, and we bring out our devices and our signals, I feel like it's something we can do.
It's only been 5 years since all federal United States police officers changed their broadband. And that was for that reason that she's talking about.
Yeah, because the broadband that they used to use was going straight into space, and all the aliens were showing up like, you guys are signaling us? What's up? But then they show up and nobody knows what to do.
They truncated them.
Yeah.
I think just to reiterate a little bit on what she's saying about the group vibration thing, in talking about this area, like another entity that we talk about around Northern California a lot is what they call the Bigfoot, which I also believe must have to been from somewhere else and comes down and dips in from time to time. But I'll tell you right now, backside of Simmerly Road where it meets Halls Valley, the big swamp back there, you want to check them out, you can go back there and call them any day of the week with a group of men. I'll say that, and not in no certain way, but when women are present, they don't come around. When men go out there, they show themselves. I don't know why that is, but you can smell them, you can see them, they're there. Like very present, and if a group of you go there to reason with them, they'll come out.
Yeah, so I would love it if we could put together a little program, and share it amongst ourselves, and then if we all get on that same thing, we'll have another sesh and get our crystals out.
Has anybody ever had a third generation infrared, the goggles? Because at the CE5 they had a $10,000 pair, and I've had like pretty good binoculars or telescopes or whatever else, but when you see like a $10,000 one, and they had like 3 sets of them at this, so there's about 40 of us outside, and so we were all seeing something, but then the people with the night goggles were just like, it was just straight like a freeway. And you could just like something you'd never even, it's like unbelievable. I wanted to buy them ever since, but I put $1.5 million in my cannabis company rather than buy one of those things. I should have saved 10 grand to buy one of those. But I would like to get one of those or two, because when you have those, then you're seeing something and just, it's like right there, and you get to see the real moves, not like, did you see this? It's just, it's incredible. So we have to get a pair of those goggles, and we'll actually do that over the next month. Let's wait till the weather gets a little bit warmer, and then we'll go out and we'll put that in. That'll be our first action item from this meeting.
Oh, yeah.
I need more than 2 weeks before I get things done.
I just wanted to add to that conversation a little bit. When I lived in Pittsburgh, we ran into this woman who was living out at the Native American Indian Center named Spider, and she taught us a little rhythmic chant to do at some point in the night. But just before that, we'd all taken done a 4-round sweat lodge to more or less purify, and then we all got in a circle, and we were just, it was like my buddy Dave and I were just standing there, and people all the way around, just like we are now, in the, I don't know, maybe like 11 p.m. top of this hill, and she just had all of us start chanting this thing, and it's like each group of people started a different thing, so it was like a round, so it was constantly going, and it was also going around, while that was happening, there was a couple of dogs in our midst who came right into the middle of the circle and started digging a hole and whining, right? And I was like, whoa, that's pretty interesting. Well, this peafowl came in from behind us, swallowed me to the point where I couldn't see the person right across from me, and then I covered them. And so then we were doing this, and I was like, okay, it's happening. Something's going to happen right here, The whole sky lit up with this white light, and and it got brighter and brighter and brighter, and came right over the whole scene, and then didn't stay long, but made sure that we knew it was there, right? But then later on, the next day, we found out that somebody who had been fasting down in the hollow to get their visionary experience or whatever, they actually landed in their area and talked to them.
Because they were the purists.
That's why I brought it up.
No, it makes sense. It makes sense energetically.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
makes sense.
So, that whole energy thing is definitely a thing. So yeah, that was what I wanted to add to that. Really great. This guy wants to say something.
About 26 and a half years ago, I had an experience. It was a group of us, and later in life, was seeing it, Greer talk about calling them in 5th level. I believe that that's the scenario we created because we checked all the boxes. Intimate group, all in tune with each other. We had experience on a we partook in mushrooms, so we had a group consciousness. We created a vehicle for being able to get a signal, and then we traveled together on a journey. The ones that connected that night. 3 days later, that's when it happened, and we were way on a mountain, far. It was an old logging road, and I don't think it had been driven up with the road for like 3-4 years. We go as far as we can. There's this rock placed in the middle of the road, and it's like this has no moss growing on it. Like all the rocks around there had moss growing on it. Like it had definitely been there for years, and it's not close to a peak of a mountain, and there's no landslide. It's like, how did this freaking rock get here? So that's where we broke camp, and it was definitely, if not a 5th, a 4th level where you have communication between the entity and us. And there were multiple beings, you know. I think the craft was the being. I couldn't really explain it, but they came through like a wormhole. We recognized them, you know, as they were coming into our solar system, and the amount of time it took from when they were maybe a little bit past Mars to here, it was just like snap of a finger. And they were like several hundred feet away. And one of them singled me out, you know, and I went off into the woods, and it's about 25 feet away, as close as I got to it. And I found myself speaking in language I could not understand. But I could feel the emotion behind the words. It was like, wait, I have an opportunity to go on a journey, will change my life forever. And I had a better recommendation. I had work to do in this plane, and decided to stick around. I think I had that option to leave if I wanted to. But that, you know, and the reason why I think it's more of a fifth level, because I think we opened a bubble of that they can tune into. And they're like, okay, here's a higher intelligence being, group of them creating this group chakra, I would say. But that was my experience. Thank you for this group and everyone's intention and honesty and everything.
One thing that ties in with all of this is lucid dreaming. A lot of people are having psychedelic trips, but you know, we're all collecting DMT consistently throughout the day as we eat food. It's just burns like the oil that you're inside of the sunshine, you know what I mean? Some animals, some plants absorb it more, and so you can get more of it. And your third eye collects that as tears, so that when you go to sleep, when your inner eye opens, it opens into that wash of DMT. So it's a completely immersive experience. So this is where we, you know, launch from once we're expired from this meat suit, you know, we go right through that third eye into the next dimension, which is completely free of body, but you still have all the memories you have, plus all the ones that you had before you ended up here. That was the relief for me, spending 3 months in Alaska, just every night having lucid dreams without even trying, not like any exercise. It was just going on. And that's when I realized that. So, congratulations. Wolverine, otherwise known as Rick. I do have some art on the I've had experiences with Fairy Clan also, so I think that is just like we are experiencing our own world as permaculturists, knowing all the plants and animals within our sphere. So we're dealing with multiple beings in multiple levels that, like, you know, there's going to be ambivalent people, there's going to be people that want to be directly involved with us for good purposes and also for their own purposes. So our ability to discern those things as this new energy comes through is the utmost importance. And I think that, like, clarifying and being clear and having clarity is going to be a huge service to your mind and your heart and your ability to take on, you know, this new information. I recommend anybody that hasn't to check out Robert Monroe. He did several books on lucid dreaming and what it's like in astral plane, from his standpoint. Much different experience for myself. I spent most of my time flying as fast as I could through buildings or glass or whatever I could find just to see what would happen, And I would just slow down or stop on a dime and just like look at the granular aspects of every grain, Very interesting. And no fear of doing backflips or slides or whatever in the air, it's just like, the only thing that is faster than the speed of light is the speed of thought. And that is how fast you go when you are lucid dreaming. That is very powerful. There's nobody more powerful than you and your imagination.
So I wanted to say, I mentioned earlier, you also have PTSD. Tim, you mentioned that. I have very severe PTSD as well, and stopped sleeping at 10 years old. Oh my God, like, that's dope. Yeah, there's aliens. Oh my God, like, that's dope. Yeah, there's aliens everywhere. You just everything, and it was a very free, open, and I came off the lot in '94 and started in children, and there hasn't been another community that I've met since being on the dead lot where that was an open discussion, where aliens were welcome, where aliens were okay, we were stealing each other's faces, crazy shit was happening, and here we are, Area 101, 2023, and we're finally sitting down and going, hey, who else saw aliens? Because I haven't seen them for a long time,
We're the same way.
Yeah. And getting told you're crazy. Like,
in the old days, you would be considered the wise elder, the person that they would go to for guidance and stuff. And it's amazing how much they turned around. That's why that book with Henry Jacobson and Phenomena, you look at how they knew what it was, and so they took it away from us and demonized it. And it's like really sad, because that's what we're going to break down so our kids can be raised instead of being on Ritalin. I got 2 grandkids that are screwed up because they're on pharmaceuticals and stuff. What they put these kids on and what they do, it's insanity, man. We've lost our whole tribal way of like raising children, community, all of us. And it's going to change because we want people like you to feel comfortable, be able to say, yeah, aliens.
yeah, at one point I was convinced I was an alien. Like I got to the point where I was just like, I guess I'm probably just not human. Because this stuff is happening too much, and now who am I going to tell that I think I'm a UFO? Like, I think I'm not from here. I remember going to New Orleans for the first time and walking into this little voodoo shop, and in the back there was a psychic. And my friend was really, I'm very